What is going on, everybody? And we are getting this much closer to actually being able to build a computer. So I've decided to start a little bit of a build vlog. But in order to look at what we're going to do first, we're going to take a look back to the past. I was really fuzzy looking back then. Holy crap. I will begin recording with that while I continue to work on the infamous PC build. This was before my tooth got chipped. I've got the first few pieces and I'm going to look at some of them right now. So, cat looking down at me, little gooby. This was recorded on my old HTC One. I know, people are going to make fun of me. I'm not using that keyboard. Hey, it works. Rest. But these are the two big pieces that I have so far. And as you just saw, much scruffier looking. This was about 3 years ago. And this was when I was originally going to build a new computer. I had my mind made up. It was a 4770K. We'll get to all that in a little bit. The first episode in this build vlog, though, is about looking back, where I've come from, and where I think I'm going to be in about a month or two. Because we're getting there. Things are starting to happen. You're going to see the first piece. It's down here. It's just out of sight down there. And you're going to see the first piece to the build that is actually already here. And this time, what you saw there, the CPU and the motherboard, will be some of the last pieces that I get. But I wanted you to take a look at that because that was about 3 years ago. My YouTube stuff started in 2012. And I didn't plan it out very well. And this guy right here, Compact Presario CQ50, I think is the model number. I don't even know what processor was in here. What is this? An AMD? I think this was, I took the sticker off. I think this was an AMD Athlon. I don't even know the specs on it anymore. It's been so long since I've actually, looked at this thing and messed with it. In fact, I'm probably going to take this thing apart. If you think I should take this thing apart, let me know in the comments below. Because I kind of want to, tinker with it and mess with it a little bit and see what happens. But this was what I started with. And this guy right here, if I open it up, well, as you can see, not the sturdiest, no number key. It was just, my daughter got a hold of this at some point, so there's marker here. I got this for about $100 off of eBay, and this was going to be what I thought would be good enough. I had no clue back then how to do any of this. I had no clue. I was completely lost. And I decided that I was going to give this a try. And I used this. And I started up Minecraft. I purchased Fraps. And I started playing. And it did not play very well at all. In fact, Fraps is already bad when you have a good machine because it'll knock a good 10 to 15 frames per second off. When you're only barely getting 30 and you lose 10 to 15 frames per second, this was poor planning on my part. I should never have gone with this to begin with. I should never have used this machine. I should have really just waited and planned it out and probably should have just started with a desktop. But, I wanted to do this. This was going to be what I built my channel with, and it actually got off to a pretty good start. People were watching despite the fact that this was on this machine getting about 15 to 20 frames per second. My audio was not this. At the start, it was a little $10 headset. I don't even know why I even thought that was a good idea. Again, I didn't know what I was doing back then. I eventually got an ATR 2500 to pair with this, but I used this thing for over a year. September 2012, all the way through until May of 2014. Yeah, 2014. So we closed the book on this guy, and I'm not opening this one up because if I open this guy up, it's going to go crazy with the fan noise. That's actually one of the things I miss the least about this. But it was 2014, and I had made up my mind that I was going to build a computer. I was going to do this. It was going to be the great PC build of 2014. It was a 4770K. I knew what kind of processor I wanted. I didn't quite know on the motherboard, but it looked like the Gigabyte was a pretty decent motherboard. I don't remember how much memory, and I don't think I had an SSD in the PC part picker list. In fact, that parts list is long gone. That not even on a blip anymore. But I do remember the Seagate Barracuda hard drives and a GTX 760. That was going to be my graphical powerhouse. But I came to the realization that I was not going to be able to buy all the parts because other things were going on. There were other expenses. I think I needed tires that year and brakes, and just other things always seemed to come up. But I still had some money to work with, and I thought, well, laptop has worked so far. Let's get a little bit better of a laptop and see what happens. I can actually say that my ex was the one who found this laptop. She pointed it out to me on HP's website. This is an HP Envy. I forget the exact model number, but AMD 5750. I'd have to go to one of my old videos to see what the exact processor was, but it was a decent enough processor. Not great, but it was decent. And it was a definite improvement in terms of render time and, you know, the graphical power. Minecraft actually ran about 60 frames per second when I wasn't recording. It dipped a little bit when I would record, but, you know, I had come to be used to that. Now, the big drawback, of course, was the fan noise. Even when this thing is not playing a game, it's humming pretty good. And that's actually one of the things that made me kind of not want to record as much after a while, because the fan noise to me was very distracting. Other people said they couldn't tell. I could hear it. I always count on a dog to ruin the ambience of a recording. But this guy did the job. And, you know, what, 8750 mobile GPU or something like that? I don't remember exactly what it was. Again, specs are beyond me. I upgraded it to 16 gigabytes of memory. It has a nice, decent, you know, somewhat past 720p screen. I think it was 1366 or whatever they use for these screens. Not 720, not full HD. And, you know, backlit keyboard. Nice little system. And paired with, you know, my wireless mouse, it did a nice job. I eventually upgraded to this guy. This is the AT2020 USB Plus, and so, you know, it's a good mic, picks up all the hum. So I was using Sound Booth for a while. I was definitely trying to do things to make it as good as possible, and I feel like I did a decent job of that for a while. But it started to show its age, and it definitely hit home when I installed Star Wars Battlefront. I had won it in a raffle back when my friend John of All Games was doing raffles, and it just it didn't work. The game barely ran. There was no half the audio didn't work. There was no sound effects. Like if I shot the blaster in the game, there was no blaster sound. The music was sometimes there. That was when I realized this thing is showing its age. As you can see, it now has, I don't know if you could see it clearly, but there's a picture of Rocky from Paw Patrol, and of course we have Rapunzel from Tangled. So, you know, I decided that it was time to move on, and I gave this to my ex. The kids stickered it, and you can't see it. Ignore the fact that my keyboard is sitting up there. I wanted the keyboard out of sight and out of the way for this little video demonstration, but that is the Acer Aspire V15 Nitro Black Edition, and that is what I'm using now. And that, you know, was something I ultimately decided I needed to do. About end of summer of this year, I decided it was time to see what I could do. I had gotten a pretty substantial increase on my credit line, and I decided that with this other computer that I had come into possession of, I was going to sell that, and I was going to use some money, and I was going to buy a slightly better laptop, and that has done the job. It's definitely a step up from this, which was a step up from this, but it's obviously still lacking. The GTX 960M is not a great mobile GPU because it's just not. I mean, it'll run games at medium and you'll get 50 to 60 frames per second, but I aspire to more, especially if I'm going to do content creation. And I want to do content creation, and I want to do things a little bit better. And so I finally decided, you know what? 2017, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to find, I'm going to do an X99 build, and I'm going to find pieces and parts at the best prices that I possibly can, and we're going to see what happens. And that's my goal, and that's what I want to do. Now, again, the Acer has done me pretty well, and this BenQ monitor is a nice addition. The Logitech keyboard that you guys have seen a little bit of, really, really great keyboard. And of course, the Logitech mouse is also really, really good. So I have some of the core pieces. I've done a little bit of upgrade, and you've seen a little bit of this windscreen if you've watched the video, the shock mount. But it was time to put these guys to bed. Like I said, this guy is probably going to get disassembled. This guy, obviously my ex is using it now, so it's getting used. And the Acer is going to still continue to be used as well. It's going to serve its purpose. The i7 in there is very good for rendering. And that's the biggest thing. 6 hours to render a 720, 30 frames per second, 25 to 30 minute video. About 2 hours to do 720, 60 on the Envy. About 25 to 30 minutes to do full 1080, 60 frames per second. Now, I can only imagine what, an X99 build will be able to do. I know that they're pretty solid, and that's why I want them for rendering, because they're solid at rendering. So, obviously, you have to start somewhere. You've seen a clip of it, of the unboxing that I did. I'm not going to use that because it's just not a very good unboxing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with this thing. But give me just a minute and you will see the first piece that I am going to be using in this build. Say hello to the NZXT H440. This is the centerpiece to what I'm going to be doing in this build, and I'm really actually looking forward to this. I actually wish I had the parts right now, because I am really looking forward to building in this. Now, this is a refurbished H440. This came from NZXT's Christmas New Year's sale that they had going on. It was like the 12 days of Christmas, I think it was. And one of the deals was 30% off of a refurbished item. And that was pretty fantastic, because a refurbished H440 was $99. 30% off of that was $70. Now, there was $15 in shipping, so it ends up being about $85. But these guys, I have seen them now on Amazon for under $110, but on NZXT's website, they're $120. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And I love the red. I love the panel. Now, again, it is a refurbish, and the panel is not, the best material. And it's pretty scratched up. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but not really a big deal. And I'm really looking forward to this. And I like the fact that it's pretty plain, because all I want to see is the side panel. And I like that it's pretty easy to take it apart. It's pretty easy to get inside of it. And I like the fact that inside is some soundproofing foam. I don't think it's the greatest material, but it's something. I like that. I don't think I'm replacing the fans. I'm going to see how the stock fans go, continuing what NZXT did with this. Top panel comes off as well. Again, more of that foam that I was talking about. And again, this is a nice thing. You see all this stuff up here, USB headers, all this stuff is actually attached to the case. It's not attached to the so you're not worrying about having to connect wires there. And then up here is where I'm going to be putting the radiator, the all-in-one cooler. It's probably going to be a X62 Kraken cooler. I think I'm going to stick with NZXT for this. No real reason why. It's supposed to be toolless, but these little thumb screws are finicky for some reason on here. Probably because I keep jostling it around. Now, the nice thing about this, there we go. Nice thing about this is, give me a second, the thumb screws stay attached, so you're not going to lose them. And again, foam padding in there. Not the easiest to see, but again, plenty of space in there. And all these, the hard drive cages are over here. SSD mounts down here, and this blocks where the power supply would go in back here. So again, and then this is the back. I mentioned power supply goes in here. And pretty easy to take off. Now, this is the only thing that I've seen. I've seen this from a number of people. This is from just the basic cable management that's in there, causing a few issues. And then, of course, the opposite side where you're pretty much going to route all the cables. And this was the thing I was concerned about. I don't know if you can see this. This is the fan hub. Now, the original H440 did not have a great fan hub. It was all or nothing. If you had everything plugged into this hub, the fans were going to go 100% no matter what you did. The nice thing about this revision is that this is a PWM, and that means you can plug it into your motherboard, and then you can control the fans with the CAM software. So I definitely was excited to see that. Something I'm going to have to check. Might be a huge deal, might not be. I don't know yet. I got to kind of check around. Something may have been knocked around. I think there's supposed to be a cover over here for the power supply, and that does not seem to be here. So may have to look into that. But we'll come to that when we get to it. Again, I like the basic layout. It's going to be pretty easy to get into. It's going to be pretty easy to do. These hard drive sleds just come right out. Again, all my cables are down here. And the nice thing, LED up here, there's a little LED that will turn on a light over the I/O so that you could see what you're doing back here, which is kind of a nice thing, especially if it's a little dark. So this is the first piece. And so again, there is the main piece. This is the starting point. This is where everything is going to go. Now, again, I know it's going to be X99, whether it's a 5820 or 6800. 5820 is $60 cheaper. Seems to be the best way to go. 6800 doesn't really offer anything significant. If I want more PCIe lanes, if I want more of those lanes, I have to go to a 6850, which is over $500 right now. And 5930Ks are also over $500 still. Those did not, those disappeared off of Amazon shelves and did not come back down. And so that becomes a bit of an issue of figuring out which CPU to go with. And then, of course, you know, am I going to go 16 gigs of memory, 32 gigs? I want to go 32, but I may have to get it soon because prices are going up. And then power supply, graphics card, all that other stuff. I have a general idea. We're going to get it together. As I get more pieces and parts, we will add to this build vlog. Generally in the area of two to three different kinds of pieces. So let's say I get the power supply and the memory. We'll do a little vlog about that, why I went with those choices. Same thing with storage, the cooler. And then when I have all the main components and it's just down to the CPU and the motherboard, that will be it. That will be the last video that I do ahead of the actual build, and then we will do a build vlog. So a couple other things I kind of want to be able to do. I do want to get a sit to stand desk, but those are kind of expensive. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen. Nothing wrong with this though. If it ends up being there, then it's just going to be, where am I going to put this thing on the desk? I probably would want to put it there so I could see the light, but we'll cover all that in the future. One more additional monitor is going to be purchased, probably another BenQ. I'd love to do 1440, but those are still at minimum $300 to $400, and I just don't know if I want to do that right now. Graphics card wise, looking at a 1070. Motherboard wise, looking at an Asus. Same thing with the GPU, although I may go EVGA. We'll see. There's a lot of things that can happen. Prices could come down. Ryzen's still coming from AMD. Their Vega GPUs are still coming. So there's still some possibilities that some things could change down the road. However, that's going to do it. And again, I have this little handy box of stuff that comes with this case. I forgot to mention that. I think that's going to do it for this first episode of the build vlog, taking a look back and then taking a look at the first piece. Again, this is my case. I do have it in case somebody didn't believe it. I did put pictures up, of course, but you know, people can be weird. But this is the idea that this is what I'm going to be working with, and that's the general plan going forward. Get the pieces and parts when I can. I should be getting my tax money here in the next few weeks. And once that happens, we will really kick it into high gear and we'll get this build done. And if a video goes up of a build and it means it was successful and everything's working, and then we will take it from there, because I do want to kind of tweak, do some overclocking on the CPU and maybe the memory and maybe the GPU. I don't know how necessary that's going to be, but I do want to overclock the CPU. I've been watching a ton of stuff on that. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more videos as I get more parts, and I will see you guys next time.